Welcome back to The Heat. We're talking about the pending exit of U.S. military forces from Syria. What are the implications of that? We will continue our discussion now with our panel. And Ambassador, if we look at the broader implications of what the U.S. is considering here, it pulls out of Syria. What does that mean for the U.S. presence in the Middle East? It's had a lengthy presence in the Middle East. It goes back decades. What does it mean?
Well, I think even under Obama, we were talking about de-emphasizing to some extent American involvement in the region. American people are tired of the U.S. expending lives and a lot of resources on endless wars, it seems, in that region of the world. And there are many other challenges, more conventional challenges elsewhere. So it probably does mean a diminution of U.S. influence in the region. And the greatest concern in this country among the foreign policy elite is that Iran will be the greatest beneficiary. Russia, of course, as well. But Iran has a pretty clear field, it seems, through Iraq, Syria to Hezbollah in Lebanon. And of course, with the U.S.-Israeli alliance, that concerns Israel and it concerns many of Israel's supporters here in the U.S. That Iran seems to be establishing itself much more firmly within Syria with no end in sight. At the same time, it's not realistic to think that the U.S. can just remain there until Iran decides to leave, as some foreign policy hawks have suggested. That's totally untenable, in my opinion.
Ammar Waqqaf, if we look at the number of countries involved in the Syrian conflict right now, Russia, Iran, the United States, Israel, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, what does the future hold for Syria when this war is over at some point?
Regionally, we're seeing signs of recovery of the Syria expected role. The United Arab Emirates was the first to reopen its embassies in Syria. There has been encouragement from Bahrain. Basically, the Emirati, Saudi, Egyptian, Bahraini sort of axis in the region is making headways towards Syria. They think that they can balance or counterbalance the Iranian influence. Syria traditionally has always been, a midpoint between Iranian and Arab sort of policies in the region. It has been a buffer for the past few decades, apart from this conflict, obviously. Internationally, as His Excellency the Ambassador mentioned, Foreign Secretary of Britain Jeremy Hunt said earlier today that Russia has gained, we acknowledge sort of that Russia has gained its sphere of influence, we acknowledge that, but with that comes responsibility, so there are steps to keep the peace that are required from Russia. Iran, I think their main concern, we view this as, since the very beginning of the crisis, was to prevent them or the West bringing the battle to Iran proper. So basically they were defending themselves, and I think they would be pleased. There remains the Qatari, Turkish access. Turkey is doing a lot through the Astana process with Iran and Russia. Qatar is still reluctant at the moment because of the conflict between the Gulf states to join the bandwagon. But we're seeing Syria recovering and rejoining its regional environment, so to speak, hopefully in a leading role.
Namo, the Russians are going to be hosting a three-way summit with Turkey and with Iran when the future of Syria will be discussed. How do the Kurds view that development? Would they like to have their voice heard there?
Absolutely. So far, the so-called Astana talks that they were held in Kazakhstan and even the Geneva talks, the Kurds were excluded in both of them. The YPG, I mean, when we talk about the Kurds, I know we're simplifying it here, but the YPG is the main representative of the Kurdish forces, and they won't be invited. Why? Because Turkey is opposed to it. And of course, Assad also likes this, because the rest of the opposition has no leverage. And Assad has never been willing, has not been willing to compromise to the Free Syrian Army opposition. And now Assad is in the best position he has ever been since the beginning of the civil war. So the absence of the Kurdish forces will basically mean that we're not going to get anywhere, or the absence of a real opposition in the talks. There's one other thing, Anand, that I want to emphasize here. A lot of people look at the Kurds in Syria as a quote-unquote separatist group. But the Syrian Kurd, the YPG, is not really a separatist group. They are openly opposed to the creation of a nation-state. They see themselves as a leftist, Marxist
Do they have an alliance
group.
with the PKK?
They do have an alliance with the PKK. And even the PKK is not a separatist group. They are also a Marxist organization. And Marxism, in their sense, is not like the kind of communism that West is afraid of.
Right.
It's basically a decentralized form of government, whether it's in Turkey or Syria or Iraq. And then women's rights, gender equality, secularism. That's all what they want. They don't really want a Kurdish state.
Ali Cinar, what is Turkey's ultimate objective in Syria? Because we look at how complicated the situation is. Turkey is fighting ISIL in Syria. It also sees the YPG as a terrorist group. But we have the YPG fighting ISIL as well.
Well, first of all, I don't agree with the guest. I mean, YPG and PKK are same, and we believe that they have their own agenda. As I said, Turkey's right now would like have the refugees go back to their own country. So Turkey makes sure that Assad regime will be removed. But it seems like it will be difficult since Russia and Iran are backing him up. So next year and in 2019, it will be a very difficult year. Even there will be some talks between Russia, Iran, Turkey, United States. However, Turkey wants to make sure that protect the border and also remove the terrorist elements from the region. But in general, Turkey wants a one state, reviewing Assad at the end. But this not be without U.S. support. And I think even United States withdrawing the troops, at some point there will be still there, because United States has 54,000 U.S. troops in Middle East and a lot of troops in Iraq. So I think even President Trump's decision is right now discussed, but in the future I don't think U.S. will permanently leave the Syria. There should be a still cooperation with NATO allies in the region.
Right. Ambassador, something we used to hear very often here in the United States, Assad must go. We don't hear that very often these days.
No, you don't. And Trump doesn't seem to be at all concerned about Assad staying. Not that he expresses any great admiration for the man, but Trump seems willing to let Russia try to sort this out. And indeed, Russia has incentives for trying to do so. And there are some interesting trade-offs that could perhaps be made, and I don't know quite how they would play out. We've been talking only about the Kurds in Turkey and that aspect of it, but there's this whole pocket of Idlib province right up on the Turkish border in the west that is populated by militias that are either loyal to Turkey or loyal to Al-Qaeda. And Assad wants to take them out with, of course, he'd like to have Russia and Iran's help. I have a feeling that Russia and Turkey might work some things out, putting the Kurdish area in the mix with Idlib and who's going to do what in order to prevent massacres and chaos, because that would not reflect well on Russia if you have a free-for-all.
Ammar Waqqaf, the Syrian leader, Bashar al-Assad, he is in the driver's seat for now, as someone pointed out a moment ago, and he's vowed to recover Syrian territory that's currently held by the Syrian Defense Forces. Is there a risk here that we could see more big battles on the way?
Now that the Americans are gone, we're starting to see some agreements that are taking place. The Syrian state, they're issuing official statements saying, for example, they immediately issued, after the Trump's administration announcement, they immediately issued a statement saying the Syrian army went to Manbij and raised the Syrian flag. Turns out to be not very precise as a statement, but actually it tells you the intent. And there seems to be some agreements on the table, not only with the Syrian Kurds, by the way, but also with the United States itself, Turkey, and regional allies. We've heard rumors that the United Arab Emirates and Egypt may be interested in sending troops to that area. If that information is correct, that gossip is correct, then it may be the case that Syria would like to lean onto its Arab brothers and neighbors in order to counter the influence of Turkey and prevent some clashes between Turkish-driven militia, the Euphrates Shields and whatever, and the Kurdish militia. In that sense, there would be less bloodshed. But we're yet to see how this would develop over the coming few months.
Okay, and that's where we are going to have to leave it. Thanks to all of you for being with us. That's it for this edition of The Heat. Thanks for being with us.